That's a pretty neat piece of technology. You're
listening to the Get.Out.N.Drive podcast with John, CustomCarNerd Meyer, and Jason, OldeCarrGuy Carr. We'll be bringing you gearheads everything you never wanted to know about cars and why they should be on the road and not in your garage. Are you ready to get out and drive?
Folks, welcome back to another great episode of the Get.Out.N.Drive podcast. My name is Jason, OldeCarrGuy Carr.
And I am John, CustomCarNerd Meyer.
John, I'm pretty excited this week to have some very special guests. They stole the SEMA show, I believe, this year with one of their builds. We've got Jim and Mike Ring here from the Ringbrothers. Guys, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you. Thanks for having us.
So one of the things that we love to do to kind of shake things off a little bit, have a little bit of fun, and kind of get the podcast rolling is we've got a little program called Done in 60 Seconds. Jim has volunteered to be our questionnaire, I guess, the guy who's going to answer all these questions. So we've got 10 questions, 60 seconds, and we hope that we're going to have a little bit of fun, shake things up. Jim, are you ready?
Let's do it.
Okay. First question, what is your favorite movie?
Jaws.
What car did you take your driver's test in?
77 Malibu Classic.
Was that your first car?
That was my mom's first car.
What is your current car today?
I have a 2020 Chevy pickup.
What's the worst car you've ever owned?
The one I sold to my brothers.
Facebook Marketplace, Racing Junk, or eBay?
I'm always on Facebook Marketplace.
What's your favorite music genre?
Bob Seger.
Who's your favorite actor?
I don't think I have one. Mike most of the time.
LS, Coyote, or Hemi?
Definitely have to be an LS for me.
And the last question, number 10, Back to the Future, 1, 2, or 3?
Definitely 1.
Absolutely. That was great. Thank you for playing along with Done in 60 Seconds. Now it's time to get into the podcast and start asking some really hard questions.
All right, let's do it.
I know you guys had fun. You had to, because this thing's so wacky. That Enyo build, the 48 Chevy truck, it obviously started out, I saw the pictures of it, as a grain truck. The cab, which was just about what's left, because I know that's the same general size and everything as a standard half-ton truck. Doesn't matter if you put on a 1-ton chassis, same size. That thing is wacky. Kind of explain the thought process behind that. If you guys came up with that, or if a customer came to you and said, "Hey, would you build this?" Because it is super out of your norm.
The owner actually came to us with these crazy boat motors that were like 2,500 horse twin supercharged motors that he had in a boat at Lake of the Ozarks. And he wanted to build what he called a rat rod out of one of these motors. So we brought this motor up, and Gary Regal actually did some line drawings on something that looked like fun. And it was really close to what that truck was, except for the motor was never going to work in it. I think the motor was like 45 inches
48,
tall,
yep,
or 48 inches tall from the oil pan to it was a dry sump to the top of the motor, and the truck is like 52 tall, so it definitely wasn't going to work.
Right.
And, basically telling him that if he can't cool this thing in a lake, he sure ain't going to cool it with a radiator. And he kind of got all frustrated and said, "You know what, we're not doing it." And he kind of threw it in the garbage. Supposedly the guy was coming back from the Barrett-Jackson auction on the airplane, looked at a good friend of his and said, "You know what, maybe we ought to revisit that truck and build that truck." He says, I really want a rat rod. And he said, "I think we should build it." So they came back. He dropped this Goodwin motor off and said, "Let's do it with this." So that's really how it got started.
Wow.
So you referred to that thing as a rat rod, and John and I, before you guys came on, we were trying to decipher what do I call this? What genre of build is it? So you classified it as a rat rod, or is there something else that we want to call it?
No, I think it's an interpretation of I don't know what you call it. You know, it's funny because people always ask us, what do you call that thing? Or how do you explain it? And I says, you know, I don't know. It's just fun. The rendering made us smile. And go back to a rendering. Most of the time, renderings look a lot cooler than you can build because of wheels and tires. Like when they do a rendering, you could never turn the car, right? They got the tires pushed all the way out. And so to do an open wheel like this is probably the only time the rendering didn't look as good as the real thing, because you could build how it looked because of having an open wheel. And I don't know what you call it. It was just fun. It was just to let somebody have us build something that we just thought, man, would that be cool?
Well, I think I read somewhere, sorry to interrupt there, Jim, but I think I read somewhere where it was classified as anti-street rod. I think somebody must have used that term somewhere along the way.
I've never heard that term. And I do want to clarify, he does call it as a rat rod. That's what he wanted. He wanted something to wake up the neighbors per se. And his friend has one, more of a rat rod than this one, but he just always wanted something like that, and this is what he got.
Wow. And does it have just a style of an open wheel look as an F1 car, or does it actually have F1 parts on it, or how is the suspension made up?
Suspension was all designed, obviously with the help of the Roadster shop did the chassis on it, but the actual suspension was designed by a gentleman that actually, his name's Scott Ahlman, but he actually designed the 2005, 2006 Ford GT chassis for Ford. Okay. And he's a very anal guy when it comes to geometry and everything working properly. He actually got Olin involved with the shocks, which are obviously not cheap. The spindles, we began with, we bought some used Porsche pin drive stuff just to actually use it as mock-up, and then ended up buying new stuff. But we machined all of the uprights, the spindles, all of that stuff was stuff we did in-house. And it's actually pretty cool to see. I don't know if you guys seen it in person or not, but
I did.
Pictures, I don't think pictures do the thing justice. It's there's just so much going on, and it's hard to wrap your head around what it actually is.
So the suspension was fun because it's like cantilevered, you know, everything. We wanted to expose everything. We were going to twin turbo it, but it was just no room to keep it kind of clean the way it is when you open the hood and get everything plumbed, because there's a lot of plumbing, you know, running the radiator in the rear, and keep it relatively clean. And we tried to do it with the turbos up by the lights, and it just got too goofy looking. And the motor makes 1,000 horsepower anyway on race gas, so it's not like we needed more power. But the chassis was fun. You know, like you said, we scanned Porsche stuff and then used true pin drive. So it's a true pin drive, you know, not an adapted hub. It's true pin drive wheels. Wow. There's nothing fake about this thing. It's mean to the bone. I mean, it was built to really run and run hard. So we've yet to do that. I mean, the snow just caught us, but Jim drove it a little bit and with the street version tires, and he's a little nervous with it.
It's a handful. It's like being in a go-kart with too much power. You know, we did go-karts at Bob Bondurant with 125cc motorcycle motors on it, and this is like having one with a 750cc motorcycle motor in it. It's just a little go-kart, and it's a rocket.
But when I first saw it,
it is rear-wheel drive. I'm sorry, Jason.
Yes.
It is rear-wheel drive. It runs a C6 torque tube out of a Corvette back to a 4L80 transmission into the transaxle. So the weight balance on the truck is just spot on. I mean, all the weight's right where you want it. It just feels good.
And that was going to be my question, was about the weight. Now, this thing doesn't look like it weighs a lot. And when you say this thing's got over 1,000 horsepower, like power to weight, I can't imagine getting this thing on the open road and seeing just exactly what it will do. So, like, what is the weight of this truck?
It is heavier than you think. Because of the chassis being all steel, we were going to do it in aluminum, and it just came out. And, you know, the carbon that we used was not to just be race carbon. It's really dense, autoclave, thick. It's meant to abuse. So the car, it weighs 3,500. So it's heavier than you think. But
steel cab, steel chassis, you know.
But it's 54 rear, 46 front, and that's where he dreamed it would be because of the tire. Like, people always think 50-50, but a lot of it, from what we're told, is the tire size and the diameter. So it's like 56. It's like 56, believe it or not. The rear tire patch is 56 compared to the front tire patch of 45, if you compare the two tires. So it's right where he wanted it to be. And it's got a big fuel tank, and that's wet, and it's I think there's a 20-gallon plus tank in it. So we never really looked at it as being race. It just landed there that it's pretty stout.
The package of that truck, just to package what we did to that truck, I mean, the thing's got air conditioning in it. It's all the electronics are in the driver's floorboard. There's a twin floor pan in that truck. So there's call it the driver's floor mat, is a removable aluminum panel that comes out. The computer, all the electronics, everything's under there. Packaging that thing was a feat in itself. There's no room in them trucks anywhere. And if you pay attention to it with the hood open, I don't think you can find a wire if you wanted to. So there's a lot going on there that nobody sees. That was a big challenge to do that.
Yeah, you talk about packaging. Even I don't know if you noticed, we got down to like, how are we going to latch this hood? We have no room for a latch. So we end up using electromagnets in the corners. If you notice that, actually when you turn the key to on, it sucks the hood in place. So as soon as the power leaves the hood, you could open it. So it was a packaging, that's probably one of the biggest things, is packaging this. And the guy's 6 foot tall. So it's a good thing we lengthened the cab 2 inches, because there's just no room.
The electromagnet, and I know it has to be super strong. You guys have driven the truck with that yes. hood and the electromagnet.
Yeah. You and I and Jason couldn't pull that hood open with them two magnets pulling it down, one on each side. It's impossible.
The key with that is you got to have a big chunk of steel on the other end. It isn't the magnet as much as it is
what it's pulling on.
What it's pulling on. So
wow,
we learned through that too. Yeah,
that's a pretty neat piece of technology. I've been into hot rods for all my life, as long as I can remember, right from the time I was playing with Hot Wheels in the dirt till now. I have never in my life heard of using electromagnet to hold a latch or to hold a hood or like that. Was that just something you thought, well, this is what we've got to do? Or was it a result of not having the room? Have you used it before?
I think
we've never used it, never heard of anybody using it. And
it was something that I don't think you'd ever want to, I wouldn't want to take this chance of doing it on a forward-facing hood, but seeing how this was a rear-facing hood with no place to go, always having downforce on it, we thought, we'll give it a shot. It actually worked out. If you hit the wall and you're spinning backwards and the battery flies out of the thing, it's probably going to come open when you're going backwards down the track.
That's probably the least of your worries though, at that point.
Yeah.
Of all, and I've certainly been following you for a really super long time. And of all the vehicles that you've built, is this the one you've had the most freedom on? It seems to me from an outside perspective that it may be. Is that true? You think it's true?
freedom in the design, but we definitely didn't wander from the original rendering. But yes, to be able to build something in the freedom of this, yeah, it was the most fun. I mean, I don't know how you can't look at the rendering and be excited. Like, there's no way somebody's gonna let you build that, and then to be able to build it, it's pretty fun, right? Most people have to see somebody else do something first before they'll let you build it, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's got to be something they've seen and can understand. And even with color, right? People are funny about that. Oh, they come to you with a color because they saw a car and they love that color and they think everything will look good in that color. They think that's the whole design is color. So yeah, in that respect, it was, but we didn't deviate from the design once we started it.
Well, there's got to be a whole lot of faith in the buyer, the owner, the guy who's basically paying the bill, to look back and see all of the previous builds that you've done. And one of the consistencies that I see in a lot of the Ringbrothers builds is you can sit there and you can look at every corner of those builds and see the subtle touches here and there. And I made a note I wanted to make sure that I actually said this right, that the subtle touches that make a not so subtle statement. And I believe that's kind of where the Ringbrothers kind of their forte is. Let's make it different, but not so different people don't know what they're looking at. And then you come and you bring this 48 Chevy into the spotlight and say, this is kind of different than anything that we've done. How do we get the trust out of the owner for us to fulfill his dream? How much conversation did you have with the owner to the point where, yes, we're confident in making this dream come true, and the faith that he had to have in you, obviously, to do something a little bit outside of what you normally do?
I think he had a guy,
He had a gentleman that kind of handled this build for him. His name was Stan Nielsen. Great guy, hot rodder, old school hot rodder guy. Kind of overlooked the whole thing. The owner literally come up, I think, twice maybe, to look at what was going on. But he didn't get involved hardly at all. I mean, he
just at the end, I was pretty adamant about, they did want to go a different way with the interior originally. And I just,
more of a Recaro comfortable seat, and Mike saw where to finish it with the carbon seat and not. I think it was the right call when you really get to look at it. I mean, if you were to look at that truck, the whole thing, all what's going on, and then look inside and see a couple Recaro seats that were recovered, I just don't think it'd be as cool as building all the carbon seats and all of the inserts. Even the foam in them seats were all machined pieces of foam, which, quite honestly, I didn't even know you could do. How you hold on to foam, but yeah, it was pretty wild. The only thing the owner wanted in that vehicle was a cell phone charger, and he still doesn't have that.
Oh no,
he'll get it.
Well, you certainly captured even with the seats and how you chose that, and how you explain that. You've chosen a very industrial look for the truck. And I think that's what you were going after. And I see you both shaking your heads, yes. And I think you've nailed it. Did it get a warm reception at SEMA, or are there people on the fence that are 50-50? This is not cool, and other people saying this is the best thing I've ever seen?
I think it's all the way around. I mean, it's definitely something that not everybody's going to like. I mean,
right.
or understand. It's not like having a super cool 69 Camaro there that guys love Camaros and they're going to think it's cool. This is like out of the ordinary, crazy fun stuff that we did, and you either like it or you don't. You're not going to change people's mind on that.
Although I never heard at SEMA a bad word. Online, you'll see haters because you have them every day. It's a PT Cruiser, it's this, it's that.
Yeah.
But anybody that's actually seen it and really looked at it, because pictures, as you know, don't do it justice.
Right.
They're just blown away at how much detail and thought was in something like this. So I'm okay with people that haven't seen it, but honestly, the people that were there were all like, oh my God, you know, what do you guys take? What are you on? You know, it was that.
I can admit I was on the fence. Especially when Con talked to us about which
Sure.
vehicle we were going to look at, if we were going to look at captive or bully or whatever we were going to look
Sure.
at. I was on the fence. I said, well, this truck looks kind of cool. And I saw the pictures and I thought, that's kind of neat. But you're right. When I saw it in person, it did draw me in. And there's a lot more details. And I probably spent half an hour or 45 minutes walking around and looking at it. So my big butt's probably in everyone's pictures. I'm the guy that took too long to look at the truck and get out of the way.
Yeah.
But it is super badass, and it is oddball and every fantastic adjective I could possibly throw at it. So
Well, that's cool.
awesome.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Yeah, it's nice when you go into it being, and then you really do see the work that went into it and the thought process. And especially if you're a guy that knows what they're looking at, you know what I mean? And that's what you really want to impress, is people that know what they're looking at, because you can't put it into words what it is. It's just, you have to see it.
So we've talked a lot about this truck and this build, and I guess kind of what's weighing on my mind is when you decided that you wanted to build this truck, at what point do you decide that I'm going to enter this into a battle of the builds at SEMA, along with, I mean, not that you're not capable, you certainly are, but at what point in this build did you say, you know, was it right from the beginning, we're going to put this in the battle of the build, we're going to have it ready for SEMA? Or was it at some point you're like, you know, we could have this done in time, our quality is there, we're going to do it? Like, when did that take place? When did that conversation happen that says, we're going to SEMA and we're going to win?
Well, I don't know. You can never go to SEMA and win and say that to yourself. That's just impossible. But we haven't been to SEMA since 2019. We did have some time. We always tend to enroll anything we take to SEMA in the Battle of the Builders, just not even necessarily for us. We do it for the owners to get them excited. Although two of the owners for two of the cars we had there, the Camaro and the Mustang, we had never met before SEMA, ever. We talked to him on the phone, but never met him. I had no idea what this guy looked like, either one of them. So that was nerve-wracking. And the fact that you had four vehicles there from Wisconsin was nerve-wracking. But no, I don't think you ever, at least I certainly never go to SEMA thinking you're going to win, because that's just not right.
I mean, you don't know how many people have stuff like this they're going to drag there, right? I mean, you may think you got something cool and you go there and go, man, I don't know what this guy's on, but it's really cool.
Yeah, so, we definitely been there, done that.
Yeah, so we're just lucky that people took it in. I think the benefit, we've said it before, for us is that we don't build cars for typical car shows. We build them to take to SEMA and get a big bang out of that. And I think for people that have better cars or whatever that have showed them earlier, it takes a little bit away from them. I mean,
yeah, it takes a little gas out of the tank. I think once they've been seen, it's just something about it. No matter how nice they are. Like, I don't think if we took this truck anywhere else in the United States, we could probably win another trophy with it, just because it's been seen. But
that kind of goes on my question of what's next for that truck. Is it going to go to Good Guys? Is it going to make that circuit? What's plans for it?
If we want to, I mean, the owner's super cool and he's willing to let us take it anywhere, but it depends on our schedule where we're done. You know, again, it's not about winning trophies, or, you know, it's not like they write you a check for 50 grand.
yeah.
And the way it is to haul things today, we don't know, honestly. We were going to do a Jay Leno episode with it, but now with Jay in the situation, we don't know if that'll ever, because we were going right to California with it, but I ended up getting COVID, and so we came home. And but no, we don't really have a plan. with it. The owner says we can take it anywhere we want, but it would be our dime. So that gets expensive. So we'll see.
Oh yeah.
I don't know how many stories and how many pictures were taken of that vehicle. It's everywhere.
Yeah.
Why we'd take it anywhere else to get more pictures of it is beyond me. But
but I mean, we've had interest from a couple people wanting to, make die casts. So that's cool. We've never had that before. So that would be cool. That's a big one for us,
Yeah,
So-
that was the first thing as a Hot Wheels collector. I that's the first thing I thought of was Mattel has to be chasing you guys.
Yes.
And I know you probably can't talk about that stuff yet.
Right.
But
we have had a couple interest by a few people. So it's amazing how quick that gets out there. And we're excited about that. Plus video games.
Nice.
So yeah, that's pretty cool. Can't deny.
Well, it's funny how things kind of come out of the woodwork. You guys are car builders, and then all of a sudden, you're in the spotlight. Battle of the Builders at SEMA, and I'm thinking that there's probably not much of a level above that you can aspire to reach. And we spent a lot of time talking about this truck. It's definitely worthy talking about that 48 Chevy because it's there. It's at the pinnacle. It's at the top. You guys, won Battle of the Builders with that. But I do want to talk for a brief second about the other entries. You had a 69 Camaro. You had a 72 K5 and the 69 Mustang that I actually had a good opportunity to look at over at the Centerforce booth at SEMA. Let's briefly talk a little bit about each of those. Let's start with the Camaro. So this is another, immaculate build that, again, you can sit there and you can walk around it like John, for 45 minutes and get in everybody's way of their pictures and still pick something subtle out every time you look at something different. Where did the inspiration come from the 69 Camaro?
That car is there, believe it or not, the only thing that you could put from a stock 69 Camaro, and that is the side glass. Other than that, it's 5 inches wider in the rear, 3 inches wider in the front. We pulled the wheelbase ahead 1.5 inches. The car length is the same, but we moved the wheelbase ahead. The roof sunk. It's all carbon. It's just, it's an animal, and that car is no slouch. I mean, that is a nice car.
we had a pull. I was driving it and tuning that Camaro, and I had the tuner in the car and allowing it to be 100% with all of the boost. The guy would have killed himself in it. So I told Gary, the tuner, I said, we got to pull this thing back. So it's only running at 70% of what it has in it.
With the big pulley.
With a large pulley, to slow down the boost, but it's still way more than you want. Being carbon, all of the weights in the bottom of that car, it drives like $1 million. I mean, it just it just feels right with the weight at your feet instead of above. You can tell there's something weird about that car when you drive it, but it's so much fun to drive. I can't wait to get it back to the owner. He's from California and have him enjoy it. But them are fun cars. Like it's just a blast to drive.
Talk to us a little bit about the Bully Blazer. I thought that was really slick. I like the over the top roll bar look and all that type of stuff. It's incorporated into it, and it doesn't look like an add-on piece. It looks more forward thinking in the GM styling of now. Yeah,
that roof line has 4 removable roof panels that you can take in and out, almost like a T-top concept. Mm-hmm. It's got a pretty wild suspension in it. It's got a foot of travel in it, so it's got a lot of suspension in it. The thing was making 1,200 horse again. Same thing happened. We had a 4-liter Whipple on it, and we had to take it down to a 2.9 because it was just making way too much power for that vehicle. So it's probably down closer to 750 right now. Mm-hmm. You see the badges on the side did say 1,200. It was 1,200 at one point.
Right.
The interior of that vehicle was kind of cool. The whole thought of that was to be able to leave the tops out, let it rain right through the seats, and go through the grid work that was in the floor. All the flooring, if you noticed, had
I did.
grids in it, and then there's belly pans below that would catch the water, or you could just pull the plug and drain it from the bottom. So the concept was just to drive it and leave it outside and let it rain and wash your boots off inside of it. Obviously, the guy will never do that, but that was the whole concept. Them seats, I think the only thing we missed on the interior was a campfire, because it looks like them seats and it should be around an old campfire from 1972.
Well, and that's what I was thinking when I saw those seats. I'm thinking, you know what? When I was a kid, I used to burn my legs in the back of those old camp chairs that folded out with that webbing in it.
Oh, yeah.
I'm thinking, man, and that looks like something that would be so comfortable to sit in, even though it's only half a chair, really.
Yeah, they're actually really comfortable. You know, the problem is when you drive that Blazer with your shirt off for a nice sunny day, you look like you got a checkerboard on your back when you get up.
You get a nice, cool waffle tan.
Yeah, you get a waffle tan. Yeah, that's it was a lot of fun. And even in the engine bay, there's so much. You talk about detail. There was so much on that thing. I mean, from how you fill it, you know, the 5-gallon tank in the back is actually how you fill the vehicle through there. And all the gun barrel rifling that was on the exhaust, like I don't know if you noticed any of that, but there is a lot. All the dash, even though it looks stock, they were all separate pods, made it feel like you're floating. The back seats were all hung off the roll cage. There's no legs on them. So the whole idea was to float, basically. And there's a lot of little things on that Blazer.
And then there's the 69 Mustang. So like this thing itself looks like an animal. I love the blue. It's got the, what was it, 5.2, 600 horse, something like that. And everything just matches the interior, the engine bay, and the color of the car. Talk us through a little bit about the build on this one.
I think that car really got overlooked. I think it was sitting, you know, if that had been sitting in the mother's booth out front and center with good lighting on it, it'd have been a whole different car. It was a little dark back there. There's a lot going on in that car. I mean, them quarters have been widened. All the air actually runs through the side scoops and the quarter panels and out through the tail lights, kind of like the new Ford GTs. There's just so much going on in that car. I can't even really think about all the stuff, but it personally, for me, I don't think it showed well right where it was sitting, because I think it was dark. It was kind of along the wall. But that vehicle is a really cool car when you get to stand back and look at it. A lot of detail in that car.
Yeah, it doesn't look wider. It looks kind of like a stock 69 that sits low, but man, I really like the back end of the car, the way that you printed the taillights, and all the taillights are different, but yet when you hit the brake lights, all the inside, you know, by printing the lights, we have grooves inside the lights, and they all line up. It's, you know, the way the air comes through and around those taillights. I don't know. We machined the front or the rear bumpers, machined all the diffusers underneath that people didn't get to see. And the interior, you know, retained the 69 look with the 2 humps. But yet, if you notice, you could see through from the front. So they didn't go all the way down to the dash pad. It was like see through. There's a lot of neat ideas that hadn't really seen before, but yet still maintained a very much 69 car without bastardizing it in any way by using the grill. And like the front, the lower fascia on that balance on that, we pulled it out. And when we did pull it out, we actually, instead of tucking the front bumper, we pulled the bumper out because it looked like it was hitting the mouth. If you pull the bottom balance out and the hood's already out on those cars, it's one thing when it all goes back in an angle, but when we pulled that chin out, you really needed to accentuate the bumper by bringing it out too. So there's a lot going on that people, I'm sure, didn't pick up on. And
you would just walk by that car where it was sitting and think it was just a stock 69 Mustang with some cool wheels on it until you looked at it.
Well, that has to be, as a body man myself, I've been doing it for quite a long time, about 30 some years.
I'm sorry.
Right. I have since retired. So
Yeah, we are too. That's why I said I'm sorry.
right. I did. I looked at that Mustang and I saw what it was, but I always push the biggest thing that I see on a lot of your builds, on almost all of them, is the tiny details that get missed because people don't realize what they're looking at. Something that's been changed, not for the sake of change, but changed to make it more aerodynamic, to increase the drag, or to do something. In every one of your builds, that's the biggest thing that I see, is change for styling, change for improving performance. And that's what I applaud your shop for doing, is making modifications that most people won't see.
Yeah.
It sounds stupid, but I love it. I absolutely love it. And those are the best modifications.
Yeah, that's a tightrope that Jim always says you walk, in that a lot of builders, if they're going to go through the work, they want everybody to know what they did. If they're going to build a spoiler, if they're going to build a flare, if they're going to chop something, they're going to make sure everybody knows what they did. And it's a lot more fun when you forget what you even did. You know, and people ask us, we're like, and they're like, well, I noticed you did that. We're like, oh yeah, I forgot we did that. Because it's just subtle, and you can't even remember you did it, but you know it looks different. So I thank you for that, because it's something we really try to do, is not let people really know you were doing it, even though you have as much or more time doing something that people can see as they can't.
You know, the rear quarters on that car were pulled out over an inch and nobody caught it. I mean, if you notice them 69s on a stock one, they're pretty narrow, but on that car, they're
well, they go back to the stock location in the back. And
so they're an hourglass cut where we pulled them out, but nobody notices that stuff. But
right, unless it's sitting next to a stock one, you don't realize how much it's Coke bottled.
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct.
Right.
Even the front fenders, you don't know. We did that too, and the way we did it, I'd have to explain, show you, because it's too hard to even explain, where we kept that, say that 3/4 inch, as the fender comes down, it kind of is like a concave 3/4 inch roll or whatever that rolls through. That, a lot of guys, when they do pull out the front, that gets wider up the front, where we kept that the same width. It was just a lot of thought in when we cut it to let people know it's wider. Where did they cut it? I can't see where they did it, but they got a massive 295 up front. And how the hell did they do that?
That's a big footprint.
Yeah. So.
Well, that's good, because you've got somebody out there right now with a stock Mustang that has a 285 and they can't fit it in their car.
Right.
On the rear.
On the rear.
Oh, in the rear. Yeah.
And we got it on the front. Yeah.
Right. They're trying to put it anywhere on their car and they can't.
Right.
That's a big footprint.
That's big. And that Camaro's got a 295 on it too. So
wow.
They're big up front. So yeah.
So what is in store? Can you give us anything what's coming up, or what are you guys working on, or any super secret projects I promise never to tell anyone?
No, we're not that way as far as, but we don't really show what we do till after it's over, because somebody could take an idea that we think is unique and
we have
done.
We have a 70 CUDA that we're doing right now, a 69 Charger, a Buick Grand National, a 61 Rolls Royce.
Wow.
Pretty wild car. A 71 Aston Martin.
Aston.
Are
these guys really car
Austin
guys?
Healy. Yes.
So the Aston Martin should be fun, because it was one where the owner asked us what we would like to do. So that was really cool.
I said anything besides a Mustang.
Wow.
So
definitely,
it's kind of a European Mustang, honestly, as wide as they are and short. It should be pretty fun. Honestly, we're excited about that one.
Yeah, it does have that long nose pony car look.
Yeah,
very much. It's wider, believe it or not, by 2 inches than a 69 Mustang, but it's shorter by 5 inches than a 69.
Wow.
So it's really wide and stubby. So we're going to do our James Bond theme to it, and we're excited about that. It will not run an Austin Martin, whatever he wants to say, drivetrain in it. So.
He's just getting a head start on naming the vehicle. So that's all he was getting.
There you go. Yeah. Maybe we'll have to rename that one.
Guys, you're brothers. You work together. How close side by side do you work? Are you hands-on together, or do each of you do separate things? I know it's, being a family business. I work with my dad every day, and people always say, how do you guys get along? Do you fight and all this? My dad and I, we don't, because we know when to walk away. The idea that you guys are working together, how does that family dynamic work for you two?
Well, we fight, but a lot of times it's on, the hardest part is it's 50-50, and guys will play you like they do their parents, or, like mom won't let me do it, so talk to dad. And they definitely play us. And then that we get on each other because he's like, well, I said not to do it. And I said, well, I didn't know you said it. They came to me and asked me because they want a certain outcome. So they play us. And that in turn, we get on each other for that. But also, if I feel one way and he feels, if somebody goes on vacation is when we do what we really feel we want to do. But not the most part. It's been close to 30 years now. So I'm not saying it's all easy, but we've seemed to make it work. So it's good. Our hobbies are different after work, though. He always says if he hits the lottery, he's going to go to Caterpillar. And me, I'm going to go to the golf store. So we definitely have different hobbies other than work. But we do not work together as much. Like I do different things in gym, and being the way this place is, we have 4 buildings. So we seem to be in different locations during the day.
Ringbrothers isn't just about the brothers, though, either, is it? There's a little bit more of a family dynamic there, too, as far as your wives are a part of this.
Correct.
Not
my wife.
Not your wife?
She stops by every now and then.
She works in the shipping department and with sales. Yeah, my wife does more of the counting, controller. But it's good, but it's we want to show some longevity to our employees. So hopefully I can get my son to stick around for a little bit to because Jim and I'm 60, Jim's 58, and we plan on being here a while because we really like what we do yet. People say, when do you want to retire? And for me, it's like, this is what I'd do if I was retired, right? So.
Well, I definitely like hearing that you're trying to get your son involved. We're always talking about what drives youth. And are you, as a company or separately, are you guys doing anything to support the next generation? Are you doing anything to gather local talent or place people and employees and things from colleges?
Continually have young people from the high school, which is a few blocks away from our buildings over here, people that show interest in the automotive side of things. And so the answer is yes. We do a lot of tech college tours, every year that they show up with van loads full of kids that are interested in this industry, but it's getting fewer and far between. It's definitely, I don't know what they're going to do in another 20, 30 years from now. I don't know what's going to happen. But life is changing for sure.
But the kids that are here are pretty excited. Like we put them to work, and they start in the summer and they go on, and school lets them out because their interests are aligned with what we do here, and it's pretty nice. But yeah, we try to do as much as we can with the youth, and believe it or not, our machining side of the business is all younger people, 30 and under. You know what I mean? So. They're the smart ones. If they can grasp how they can take what their knowledge is and take it to another level. It's this hobby is going to get really strong, I think, because of the young. And once they figure out a little grit, they're gonna be just fine.
The grade point average went up at our high school when Mike and I left, by the way.
It's that curve. I understand that. Now wanting to teach the next generation, and you guys have been doing this for 30 years. Who were your mentors? Who did you look up to? What are other builders and people that you saw?
It wasn't really builders because we didn't really know a lot about this hobby. It was just mechanics or people down in Kramer's, where it's a big construction firm, and whether they painted dump trucks or whatever, it was people like that. It was people that my dad owned a small gas station, and I used to wash cars on Saturday morning when I was 12, and seeing a guy like Smiley Legal with his javelin. And I think of that a lot, who touched us over the years. And it's just random people that they didn't even realize they were doing it to you, whether they let you sit in their car, drive their car.
It didn't even have to be a car. It was snowmobiles. It was all of the above, that anything you could put gas in.
And that's what drove us, I think, to just, it's funny because we think of that a lot, whether it was your teacher, a little bit of him, to, just somebody letting you drive one of their vehicles, right, as a young age. And you're just, it's cloud nine. I don't know how you put that back. I think because we were in the moment a lot more back then. We didn't have fairy tale phones where we could touch, feel for real. And the excitement of acceleration to braking to out of control. Those senses that they don't get with a phone is something that drove us to want to go faster, corner harder, get the girls by having a nicer car than your buddy.
Drive to a bigger town than the town of 600 people you were living in,
Right. Well, either one of you do, and for both of you guys, do you remember your spark? Do you remember this day, this magazine I was looking at? When did you decide this is what you wanted to do? And then from that moment forward, it just made a left turn in your life.
Can't remember that.
I can't remember it was just all those little things that put the bug in our ear, right? And I went to Navy. Jim was a crane operator for years, and then we kind of came back and did construction management for a while. And then Jim bought a car down in Chicago and tore it apart and told his wife this is what he wants to do. And I bought in about 5 years after that, and the rest is history. We started out changing oil, tires, brakes. It was never to build hot rods. I mean,
by no means.
We just knew we wanted to be in this. We were too dumb to know that we shouldn't. You know what I mean? You just, in a way, it's better to be stupid and just say, I can do this. But today, with everybody needing a business plan, if we had to write a business plan, there was no chance. No. We just knew we could do it. I mean, you just knew you could make a living doing something you were passionate about and pretty good at. And
our mother told us life is what happens when you're making other plans, and she was definitely right.
Yeah. So you talked about, the change in the oil, the tires, and you never really set out to be, building cars and whatnot. So aside from the building of cars and these fantastic award-winning hot rods that you do, if a fellow didn't know who the Ringbrothers were and they just stumbled upon your website, they had no idea really on that first homepage that you guys were award-winning car builders. You guys sell custom parts, hinges, wheels, handles, accessories. How did doing what you were doing lead into those custom parts that you now build? And CNC machining that you guys do is like, you go to your staff page and it introduces your staff. It's like half the staff are CNC operators. So how did you get to that point of the parts business?
Well, because we were trying to be unique and build parts that you weren't ordering out of the Jegs catalog like everybody else was. You didn't want to show up at a car show or an event with the same things everybody else had. So we decided to start making our own handles and mirrors and all of the stuff we make at this point to be different. And then all of a sudden, like we said, we're not smart, but a light bulb did go off and say, hell, we might as well be selling this stuff because
People are calling for
people want it. So that's really how that started. It started because we wanted something different than we could buy.
I remember the first piece we did a Mustang, a 65 fastback, and we wanted this. It was an R model back window, and if you're familiar with that, it's open. And we wanted to close it up, so we come up with this idea of this billet piece in the back. And I think we bought a farm from the guy in his house. Just we were going to flip it and make some money. But the thing is that he had to build that billet piece to fill that opening. And that's how desperate we were.
Basically, you're going to build us this part we want because it's really cool, because we didn't know anything about CNC equipment. We'll do that. We'll buy your house and your farm and your property.
But you got to build.
You got to build this part for us first.
Through work, he was a big glass company, and I'll bet you he forgot about that. But it's like that's how desperate you were to be different. And I think if you're that driven to.
And by the way, that sounds kind of weird that we were going to buy his house and farm. He was leaving. It was a fire sale, and we were in the right place at the right time, but we held him hostage.
Yeah. So. But it just turned into that guy who ended up building it, ended up working for us, and it just all took off. So you never know how it, life, you just don't know what's going to be around the corner. And you either take advantage of it or you don't. You don't even know it's at the time what it's a big deal or not. You just trust in your gut. Your gut's pretty good typically.
Yeah. There's a lot of corners when you're getting out driving, I can tell you that.
No straight lines. Everybody thinks success is in a straight line. Yeah. It's this curvy thing. Well, definitely cool. Well, thank you for hanging out with us for a little bit tonight.
So Jim, Mike from the Ringbrothers, why don't you tell everybody who's listening today how they can get a hold of you guys and where they can find the Ringbrothers? You
can find Ringbrothers on Facebook. And you can also find us on www.ringbrothers.com and check our website out with a lot of cool cars and a lot of cool parts. You can also find us on Instagram.
We'll be sure to leave all their socials in the comment section down below so you guys can find them.
Man, I look forward to seeing all the crazy things you guys are going to have your hands in. I know you described some of the vehicles that are in your shop right now. Hopefully we'll see you again next year at SEMA.
Sounds good.
Yeah, look forward to it.
Thanks for having us, guys.
Thanks for being on the show.
Cruise on over to our website, Get.Out.N.Drive.com, for all the info you never wanted to know about our podcast. Hit us up on our listener hotline, be the first to know what's happening, get industry news, and grab your Get Out and Drive merch. Connect with us on social media. Find us on Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok. Follow us on Twitter at Get.Out.N.Drive.Pod.
Hi, I'm Mike Ring. What drives you?